Show me your world, Chris.
Well, I thought we'd start with Christ's Tram Museum.
Great.
Dear Mum, Yorkshire is lovely, not like you said at all. They can smile, and they do sell my pasta sauce. The caravan bed is quite short, but Chris is a sensitive lover. Hope you can be happy for me. Love, Tina.
Yeah, good girl.
You are going to pick that up.
I didn't do that.
If you don't pick up this excrement immediately, then I'm going to have to inform the National Trust.
Report that to the National Trust, mate.
I don't want this to ruin our holiday.
Get in.
Never thought about murdering innocent people before.
He's not a person, Tina. He's a Daily Mail reader. Say one word and it's...
I get it, it's just thinking outside the box.
The police are pursuing a ginger-faced man and an angry woman.
Sit! You're a liability. You're just like your mother.
Has it gone wrong?
Yeah, a bit.
You didn't let him see you do number twos, did you, Tina?
We both said what a nice couple we thought you were. Oh, I love her.
I can fly!
Everyone else seems to find it so easy to express themselves. I mean, even you've got your knitting. Have you had a nice holiday?
Yeah, had a brilliant holiday.
Fuck you!
Cops. She's not dating anyone. Okay. Ever.
105 North Avenue, 52.
Third section, 13, Roger. What are we looking for again? Dope, money, and guns.
¿Hablas inglés o español?
Good! You good, partner? I'm good. What? He's got more bling than the old lady's wedding ring.
That guy is into something.
You're not a detective.
Follow me into the house.
Policia!
Oh my God.
Be careful. You just tugged on the tail of the snake. It's gonna turn around and bite you back.
You think I know we're rolling up on?
Every day feel the heat in the city.
Put your hands over your head. Get up.
Cartels are operating here. They operate by a different set of rules.
So why do they call you Big Evil?
Because my evil's big.
You're my brother. If anything happened to you, I would take care of your kids.
Word is, we got a hit on y'all, man. Y'all been greenlit.
We're cops. Everybody wants to kill us.
Whoa. 13 X-ray 13, suspect running on foot.
Look at me. We're shooting our way out of here, bro. 1, 2, 3.
Hello, and welcome to the final day of the Eurogamer Expo Developer Sessions. We've got some great stuff for you today. In about an hour and a half, we've got Tomb Raider, we've got Lorne Lanning, Devil May Cry, Valve are on again at 5. But our first speaker today doesn't really require much of an introduction. He is, of course, Peter Molyneux.
Right, hello, mic working? Yes, mic's working. Okay, so I'm going to go through this crazy thing that we're doing at this new company, which was set up in March, called 22 Cans, and the crazy thing I'm going to be going through is curiosity, but I'm also going to be talking a little about what it's like to have an idea and how you kind of turn an idea into something that's a product. But firstly, let me just find out who all you are. So first question is, are there any games developers in the room? Any people in the industry? Right, don't boo when I say things. Secondly, is there any people here that want to get in the industry? Right. And any people here that truly believe they're undiscovered talent that haven't been able to get their foot in the door? Right, 22 Cans, come and see me afterwards for sure. Okay, let's get started. So I've been in the industry, computer game industry, since 1989. And in that time, I've been involved with a lot of amazing people and had some crazy idea for some games. But I'm on a quest now. I'm on a quest to make a truly great game. Because really and truly, I look at all the games I've done, if we just go through them, and I ask myself, are they truly great? So the first game I made was Populous. This is the quality of the graphics, by the way, that's not the screen. And I asked myself, yes, it was a lovely little world, but is it great? I don't think it is. I think it's interesting, but it's not great. And I went on to make Powermonger. I mean, the Powermonger shows you how you can make terrible mistakes as a designer. It was a game that came out in 1990, and this is before any RTSs like, Red Alert or World of Warcraft, before all of that, and you could control these little armies of people, and you could send these armies out to attack things all over the landscape. Sounds a bit like an RTS, except for one insane thing that I did as a designer. And this shows you how easy it is to make a mistake as a designer. And the insane thing I did was to think about realism. How important is realism when you design a game? Well, it's fairly important, but it can get in the way of a good game. And let me give you an example here. So I thought to myself, well, there's this little country here, and you can click and send your armies around, but how do they get their orders? They don't have any telephones, they don't have any radios, it's supposed to be set in ancient times. I know. I'll send them orders by carrier pigeon. And so I literally, this is a week before it was supposed to be finished, I coded in this algorithm for these, and you can see that you can just see those white pixels up in the top right are the carrier pigeons. And I coded these carrier pigeons, so when you clicked on the map, the carrier pigeon flew out, took 5 minutes to fly out to give orders. What a disaster. If I just realized that that's nowhere near as fun as clicking and your army going, it would have been a far better game. I then went on and made Syndicate. I loved the miniguns. It was, it was probably the first game where you could shoot puppy dogs and babies and prams. We had to remove, surprisingly, the ratings board was fine with shooting babies and prams. That was no problem at all, but shooting puppy dogs was out of the question. So we had to remove the shooting puppy dogs. Then Magic Carpet, another insane thing as a designer. If this was before or almost during the days of Wolfenstein, if I'd set this indoors rather than flying around on a slightly effeminate magic carpet, if I'd set it indoors with a huge minigun from Syndicate, it would have been absolutely huge. But instead, we loved the zen-like feeling of flying around the world. Then a completely different game, Theme Park. I still loved the idea of building something, of making something that was mine. And the idea that it kind of worked and it was a simulation. But I can tell you that the team I had made at that time at Bullfrog were people that loved shooting puppy dogs with miniguns. And the last thing they wanted to develop was a cute, lovely theme park. So, I had to really push this through. Then, there was too much cuteness going on, so I had to dive into my evil side with a game called Dungeon Keeper, where you played the bad guy and you had to beat up good guys. And anyway, we're getting into more recent territory. Does anyone in the room play Dungeon Keeper at all? Cool. When I founded 22 Cans, I thought, what should I do? And one of the things on the list was, should we revisit something like Dungeon Keeper? But we're not going to, just to make that official. Then Black and White was probably again, there was another crazy thing to do at the start of a company, to start a company up with, this, insane idea of being a god with a big hand and having a huge creature, but it was different. And I think that is an interesting inspiration for anyone thinking of setting up their own company with their own ideas. You have to think differently. You have to stand out from the crowd. Especially these days when there are millions, almost millions, it's going to be 1 million apps in the App Store by the end of the year probably. There's millions of ideas out there being a bit different. So it's crazy, but craziness is good sometimes. And then on to the Fable series. Anyone play Fable in the room? Great. Looking pretty good. Anyone played the demo? Reactions? Good, yeah. Thanks, Lionhead, by the way, over here, little contingent. Not really. So Fable 1, Fable 2, Fable 3. All of them good games, but not great games. And now is the time to make a great game, Why is now the time? Because gaming is truly everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in everybody's hands. There's 1 billion smartphones. 1 billion. 1 billion potential gamers out there. And at the moment, they're playing shit. And that's what I have to do. I have to stand up and say all this experience, all these mistakes, all these stupid pigeons and shooting people with miniguns. I've got to use all that experience and make something great. And make something great with the stuff that us designers have that we've never had before. We've never had the ability to reach out to millions, even billions. We've never had this stuff called cloud. Cloud and cloud computing should be more than about saving your save game file too. We've got to use that stuff in a way that totally surprises people. The fact that I, as a gamer, can game everywhere. You know, the only place that I can't game at the moment is while I'm driving my car, and I can assure you I've given that a damn good try. That's a fantastic thing for us as a designer. Imagine having this huge, massive computer in the sky called cloud, having these devices which people can play anywhere, having an audience which seems to want to play games. They want to. But there's nothing really that's hitting the spot at the moment. There's nothing that's defining this generation of games. A lot of games out in this hall have defined the last generation. And then there's one last thing which I'd like you to, it's a weird one, but for the first time ever, because of all this technology, you can start playing games and continue to play games. Your games don't die. You know, I remember the days where you used to have to save your game onto floppy, and then the floppy disk used to get lost, and it was an absolute nightmare. And that went on to saving it on your Xbox hard disk, and then your Xbox went slightly wrong. Anyone had the red ring of death in the room? Yes, exactly. It's very frustrating. Well, now we can keep these saved games like we keep photographs. They're memories. They're memories of fantastic things that we have, of fantastic experiences that we've got. And lastly, and not leastly, it is the golden age of input devices. You know, of touch. I mean, just think of that. As a designer, what's it mean? The word touch is an incredible word. To be able to touch an experience, to touch a world, to manipulate a world, that is like, you know, candy for me. And don't think that these input devices are at the end. Don't think that Connect or Smart Glass or Move or any of those, don't think that we're at the end of that invention trail. We're not. We're just at the beginning. And so what all this does for me is it said one thing. I was working at Microsoft and I had a fantastic, amazing job. It was it's a lovely company full of lovely people doing lovely things. But it was just very comfortable. And I thought to myself, with all this technology out there and all these exciting things and this mass audience, you know what I have to do? I have to give up comfort. And I have to go out there and set up a new company, crazy although that is, and just experiment with one crazy, insane idea that may, just may, lead to a truly great game. And you're going to be the judge of that, hopefully not too far in the future. So that one idea, the one idea that we're working on at this precise moment at 22 Cans, I can't obviously tell you what it is, but I can tell you some of the ingredients that are important. The first ingredient is simplicity. The hardest thing for a designer from any walk of life, from whether you're a designer of computer games or whether you're a director of a film or whether you're a novelist, whatever you are, from every walk of life, the hardest thing to do, creatively speaking, is simplicity. That is the purest essence of the most difficult thing. Any of us can think of another quest for Fable. That's easy, Well, I mean, I'm sure if we had a session now, we could all in this room think of 100 quests for Fable. But thinking of one pure, simple, delightful mechanic, that makes us designers sweat. And that brings me on to this other word, and this word is delightful. Delightful. Think of that word. Think how it trips off the tongue. That's what we've got to make. It's something so simple, but so delightful. Something that when you play and interact with it, you have to show other people because it's so delightful and so surprising. It does something with this new technology that's never been done before. And that's the quest that I'm on. It's a quest for uniqueness, it's a quest for delight, and it's a quest for simplicity. But the trouble is, when you actually start thinking about that, and again, if any of you are thinking about setting off into the games industry, if any of you are thinking about setting up your own group, now's a brilliant time to do it, by the way. If any of you are thinking of going to college and starting out then, thinking of unique ideas is really, really important. But the problem is, when you've got these crazy ideas, how do you implement them? And that's what this talk is really about. It's about a journey of experimentation. Because when we're working on this idea, we need to think differently, think uniquely. And so when we set out in March, I sat down and I started to think about the idea. What idea could make a great game? And I realized that with a brand new team, working on the greatest game that I've ever worked on would be a mistake if we did that on day one. Firstly, we have to experiment with some of these techniques, some of these game designs. Those words that I wrote, that you saw on the last slide, well, I can press back. These words, we should experiment with these words and try and get it right with the new technology. So, I remembered this guy called Jj Abrams. He wrote, he's a famous script writer, wrote things like Lost. How many people saw Lost in the room? You understand it? I didn't. It didn't matter that I didn't understand it. He did Lost, he did Fringe, he's an incredibly famous script writer. And he did this talk at someone called TED. And he came out on stage and he put this box down in the middle of the stage and he said, "What's inside the box?" And it was such an enchanting talk because he said the power of mystery drives all of the scripts he's ever done. And of course, everyone kept asking him, "What's inside that box? What's inside the box?" He never told anyone. And that inspired me. Inspired me to think, look, if we're gonna do something simple, if we're gonna think about the way people are motivated to play games, what we should do is we should do our own crazy experiment. And that's when I had this idea. And the idea was insanely brave. It was not to do a game, but to do an experiment. And that experiment would be centered around a mystery. And the mystery is this. On your smartphone devices, on iOS and Android, you can download, good sound, you can download something called Curiosity. And you and the entire world will slowly chip away at this massive black cube until it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, until eventually one of you, one person in the world, will find out what's in the middle. And what is in the middle, I have already said, and I pledge that anyone in this room would find it amazing, incredible, and life-changing. You can judge me, give me a score out of 10 of how amazing you think it is. Well, we went out there, and it's slipped by a month, by the way. You can see it's not really, it's 22nd of August. We went out there, and we told the world a bit about this about 2 months ago. And we've had a lot of people tweet and wonder what could be in the middle of this cube. What amazing, incredible thing could be in the middle? Some people have said it was a dead cat. Curiosity killed the cat. It's not a dead cat. I promise you it's not a dead cat. Some people said it was a huge mountain of cash. Sadly, it's not a huge mountain of cash. We don't have enough cash to make a huge mountain of cash. Some people said it was a lovely, amazing sports car. It's not an amazing sports car. Some people even said it was Half-Life 3. Sadly, my son here is here, by the way. He's the first talk that he's ever been to of mine. He doesn't. There he is. So I'm sure he would want Half-Life 3 in there. But I promise you this. It is something incredible, unique, and amazing. And I promise you, whoever it is that finds the middle of it, they will change their lives forever. What could it be? The only way to find out is to tap on that cube. Is to, as you tap on that cube, to build up the power of how powerful your taps are. The more powerful your taps are, the more you destroy. The higher your chances are of actually being the person to come to the center of that cube. So I find that intriguing. It's unique. It is a very unusual experience because one of the things that I want to do is use this cloud computing in a different way. I've spoken about it already. So as you tap, so you can see everybody in the world tapping simultaneously. There's no signing into servers. You don't get put onto one server or another server. Literally, if there were 1 million people, that scares me, by the way, that there would be 1 million people. But if there were 1 million people, all 1 million people would be tapping simultaneously across many different devices, iOS, Android, whatever, simultaneously. That is unique. And what you find is that people will do some very unusual things. Like some people, this guy called George, he was one of the testers, spent a long time just painting pictures. And other people came along and destroyed poor George's pictures, which is very mean. So almost this society builds up. And what we're going to do is, as the layers of the cube you go through the layers of the cube, there are going to be surprises under each layer. So, for example, this one here, this layer you see here, is the pictures that are on the layer below are the pictures of the people who have tapped most in the last 24 hours. And as you're tapping away, you're revealing this picture as like an inverted jigsaw. All of this is through this incredibly, insanely simple mechanic of just tapping. And we're going to see a demo of this in a minute. Just check the time. Almost time for a demo. What we found was that tapping wasn't quite enough. I can imagine that people would download this app for free. It's absolutely free. And I can imagine that people would tap just to, 10 or 100 times. But we needed to think about using very, very simple game mechanics to make sure that the taps went from 100 taps to 10,000 taps. And that's when we started layering in simple mechanics. And the simple mechanics are, if you tap with rhythm, if you tap fast enough, you will get coins. The longer you tap for and the faster you tap, you get chains, you go up levels. And those levels give you coins which you can spend in a shop. And this is another amazing thing about the world that we live in now, we will listen to what people want after we release this, which should be in about 10 days' time. We'll listen and we'll add new game mechanics into the cube. So, for example, one of the things we're thinking of doing is adding in a very simple game of life. Does anyone know what life is? The mathematical thing called life? We're thinking of adding that onto one layer. We're thinking of adding the equivalent of Minesweeper on one layer. In fact, we can experiment with different game mechanics as it goes on. So, next, at the moment, we're working on the Android version. We're going to be adding lots more features, lots more new features that are going to continue to surprise you. And we're going to make it feel maybe a little bit more like a game. And we need to do that because this big cube is made up of 60 billion little cubes, all of which need to be tapped. That means every person on the planet Earth would tap 10 times. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? 60 billion. But what we did find, that when we opened it up to a beta test, we found that the beta testers, in the space of just a couple of hours, managed to tap almost 300,000 cubes. And that's a hell of a lot of tapping, if you think about it. And there's only 50 testers. Anyway, I'd love to demo the game, give a demo of it. So I'm going to switch over. I promised I'd do this. Yeah. By the way, before one more thing. If anyone wants to, or can we just switch back to the presentation just 1 second? Is that possible? Sorry. There we go. If anyone has any suggestions, it's not going next. Next? No. Let's not worry about that. I'll tell you. If anyone has any suggestions, or they want to apply for a job, or they want to give us feedback, or whatever, then please either email me, pmolyneux@22cans.com, or tweet me, that's at pmolyneux, or tweet 22cans, which is 22cans. Got that right. Or our Facebook page, Facebook 22cans. Right, let's have a little demo. So I'm going to ask 2 random people up to demo with me, but I'll just show you a couple of things first of all. On. Yes. Is this going to work? Oh my God. Yeah, there we go. Right. So here we have the cube, and as you see, it is, as promised, a really big black cube. We are in control. Incidentally, firstly and foremostly, what's interesting is that this is heaven for me as a designer, because through a web browser, I can change any aspect of the game I like at any time. I become a digital god. That's all I've ever wanted, actually, is to be a digital god. And now, at last, I can. So I can change the balance of anything, and I can change it to whatever person I like. So if you have, if you are bald or going bald, I could give you a huge advantage. I don't see why, because follically challenged people need all the help they can get in this world, in my opinion, which is really, really exciting. Anyway, so here's the cube. Here you can just pinch to go in, and I can start tapping. Now remember, this is day 1. We're already adding more features in there, but I like just tapping. It just feels really, really good. And if I tap with consistency and I tap fast enough, then you can see I get ×2. That means every cube I tap, I get ×2, ×3, ×4 coins. If I mess it up by missing it, then I'll lose that chain. We do not cap that chain. So I have seen people with ×50 or I think the record is ×111. That means that you would probably have to tap for, I would say about 4 hours. How you tap and go to the toilet, I'm not sure. God knows what you'd be tapping with then. But we also give you saw that bonus there, we give you a bonus for clearing the screen out. We also allow you to use as many fingers as you like. So if you want to, you can, depending on your game style, you can be what we call a messy tapper. I hate messy tappers. I like cleaning tappers, people that clean up. But someone in the office called Jack will just literally go, and his fingers will just dance over the cube and make a huge mess. So here we are. As you can see, I've tapped quite a lot. And let's just see how much I've actually tapped by just scrolling out. As you can see, actually it's not that much at all. And the scary thing for me is, over here, this is must be Apple submission. They must have tapped on here, which is very scary because, you know, it's in submission at the moment. So I will ask for a random 2 volunteers to come up and demo the cube, and then we may swap them out. Hands up, anyone that wants to come up. Spookily. My son and his best friend, this is Lucas, and Oscar, give them a round of applause. Okay. You go on. So we'll just let them tap randomly, and then while they tap, why don't we field some questions? And if I see anything interesting going on, I will, I'll probably stop answering the question and quickly turn to it. Anyone have any questions at all?
Okay, so yeah, we're going to need microphones at the back, guys. House lights need to come up a little bit. So if you have a question, stick your hand up. We've got 3 guys in the audience with microphones who will find you. And if you keep your hands up between questions, I will preload them for Peter so he can keep answering. So where are we going for the first question, guys? Who wants to stick their hand up and ask Peter something? We've got a few. There's a mic heading towards you. And I'm awaiting a signal. Ah, there we go. Now we can actually see. Thank you. Come on, guys.
That was a surprise. I surprised you then, didn't I? I just threw it on you, the questions on you.
That's all right. Okay, we've got one at the back on the right there. Keep talking and it'll come up.
Hello.
There you go.
Hi. So you mentioned you got some inspiration from Jj Abrams.
Yeah.
Are you giving him a royalty check?
Well, now this is the scary world we live in. Who knows? He may just send me an email and say, "Hey guy, can I have at least half of everything that you gain or not?" But we're not giving him a royalty check, and sadly, he's not giving me one either, which is a bit of a shame.
Okay, and there's one over at the back on the left. I think we should do that one first. Oh, sorry, in the centre here, yeah.
Centre?
Hi, Peter.
Hello.
Big fan. When you were at Microsoft, it felt like you were often shackled to really long PR cycles. So you would have talked about an element of the game maybe years before it had come out. So by the time you released, you were kind of releasing to an audience with almost crushing expectations.
Yeah.
How does it feel now that you can kind of do what you want, say what you want, make what you want, and people are probably going to be much more receptive to it?
Well, there's 2 things about that. One, it feels incredibly liberating. I can go to the conferences I want, and I can say what I want. The other thing is that I quite often have the equivalent of PR Tourette's. Is that I am the worst PR person in the world because I don't do PR. This is what I'm like. I just get very excited about an idea. I have a journalist sitting opposite me. He's bored, he's tired, he's fed up, he wants to go and nurse his hangover. And I just feel this compulsion just to excite him and to talk about things that are just whirling around in my head. And that's a dangerous thing to do. It's a dangerous thing to do, and this is a lesson I learned from Fable. Where it's dangerous because sometimes if I can talk about ideas, like, for example, the cube, I can talk about an idea. There's an idea that I had recently. Well, I was inspired by Twitter, and it was we've got this amazing thing in the middle of the cube. It's a really incredible thing. But what if the person who discovers the thing in the middle puts something else and we start the cube again? I could tell you all about that, but it would probably make the coders back at 22 Cans go insane. So freedom is fine, but there is a responsibility with that freedom. So I'm trying now to control my overwhelming urge just to talk about features before they're actually implemented, and actually to only talk about something when it's demoable and showable. But it is a wonderfully liberating thing to do. I mean, I adore being a designer, man. I just love it. I don't know how this happened, but it's a wonderful, wonderful life that I have to have an idea, this crazy idea of this black cube. I mean, how can you do these things and then to launch it out in the world? And I can't resist being that passionate about it. Did that answer your question, or did I just...
It does indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, yeah, so the back on the left, I think we have one, do we? I've been misinformed. Where am I going next then? Oh, right at the back on the right, maybe.
Here, there.
Yeah, you need to stand up to ask your question just so I can see you, and then sit down afterwards. Who is it that isn't standing up? Here we go, back on the left. You see?
Yes.
It's true. Talk and your mic will wake up.
Given the creative freedom that this actually provides people with, and given that everybody is looking at the same cube at any one time, do you have a contingency plan for any sort of creatively obscene imagery that's been put into the cube?
Well, there's a funny story about that. I'm going to tell you this funny story. So we have in the office this intern called David. He'd only been there a couple of days, and we're about to launch Curiosity to the beta testers. We had about 100 beta testers throughout the world, and it's the first time that Curiosity had gone out. And I had just given the iPad to David and said, this is literally, half an hour before it goes live to these beta test groups. And I said, just mess around with it. And he was messing around with it and playing around with it. And, I said to everyone in 20 grades, right, we're going to go live, 10, 9, 8. I looked round at the cube that was on my screen, and this guy, David, had drawn a huge erect penis on the side of the cube. So we had to stop that, because I thought, well, that would be fine. I mean, it literally, it was this massive phallic thing was on the side, so we had to reset it. This is the world that we live in now, where user content can be anything. It can be the most terribly pornographic or racist thing. And what you find is the world generally is a nice place. That's what places like YouTube prove. And as our beta says, although David wasn't one of these, no one has since David's huge penis has actually put anything obscene on there. But we'll have to see, because the interesting thing about this is that we could draw something on the cube, and if people don't like it, they can just go and erase it. They can just take that out, and we'll have to see how that does. Should we swap out my son and his best friend for two more objective people? Anyone like to give it a try? Anyone? You pick the people.
Oh, okay.
I'll take the question.
How about you there in the middle, on the right? Yep, you, the one who just looked to his left. Stand up. Yep,
And one more.
One more. Let's have this chap here. Sorry to the guys in the back. My eyesight's terrible.
And I'm going to say you've got to. If you just remember, it's pinch and tap, and then if you do want to explore this shop, you can just press up and down. So pinch and tap, explore the shop, and you've got enough coins to buy some stuff. Right, let's go back to the questions.
The next question is here in the centre, I think, first, and then there are a couple of others lined up. Go ahead.
Centre.
I'm just wondering how long you think it's going to take someone to get to the cube, to the centre, and also if you think that they're going to tell anyone what they find or keep it a secret.
Good question. I was hoping for that question. So 60 billion. Can I just borrow someone's pad? Let's see what. Sorry, I'm just going to lean over your shoulder. We can go and have a look at some stats and see how we're all doing. You have to buy stats. An interesting thing. So at the moment, on this one layer, there is that big number. I'm pointing at the screen. You can't see my finger. There is this big number, and the estimate for the number of days at this current rate, at this rate, these two people are tapping. They would have to tap for 397,000 days. I'm up for it. If I cannot imagine, it would be amazing if tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people download this app. It would be amazing. It's free. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. I don't know. That's part of the experiment. And it would be amazing, and it would be an amazing test of our technology to see 100,000 people. Can you imagine what that cube would be like, to see it dissolve, almost dissolve in front of our very eyes. That would be amazing. But, and some people in the office think it's only going to last a few days because, you know, they're very optimistic people. They think 1 million people are going to download it, and they think that 1 million people's lives are going to go on hold while they tap all the time. I hope it's not too short, because what's in the middle, it really is amazing. It's an incredible thing. It's taken me 20 years to think of and to, in a way, make the thing that's in the middle. So I hope it's not days. But equally, I hope it's not just you lot tapping, and it's more than that. And what we chose to do, when that person breaks through the middle, we will not tell the world who that person is. We will not even comment on what is in the center of the cube. We're going to leave it down to them and social media to spread this incredible thing in the middle. So, it's part of the experiment. How long it'll last? How long will people do this simple thing of tapping? How long before they get very bored? Will there be a huge number of people just sitting, looking at the cube, letting us, poor gamers, do all the hard work and then leap in at the end? I don't know. It's going to be, that's what it is. It's an experiment. We're experimenting with motivation. Okay, next question. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Next question is over here on the right.
Yeah, hi Peter. I think it's a really cool idea that you've got, but do you not worry by having paid DLC that it'll suddenly become less of an experiment and experience rather than a really clever business model that taps into people's addictions and addictive nature?
Good question. So I'm going to have to borrow this poor chap's iPad. So this shop, we talked a lot about this because part of it was the purity of just tapping. And what we realized is even the most almost OCD person in the world will not be able to tap forever. So we needed to layer in motivation. And the motivation, for me as a gamer, is always powering myself up. It's always making myself better and more powerful. And especially if I can make myself more powerful and show it off to other people. Because remember, you're live all the time. So we implemented this shop here. You see on the left. Everything in the shop you can earn through gameplay. Absolutely everything. We don't insist you spend any money at all at any time. That's very important to me. So, for example, I can buy these things called firecrackers. Now, these guys have already earned, 32,000 gold, and these firecrackers cost me 5,000. I can buy as many as I like. They will help me chip away even more of the cube. And they cost 5,000. And I can go all the way up to buying a diamond chisel, which admittedly will cost you 3 billion gold coins. That means it's a hell of a lot of tapping. Whether we like it or not, some people are lazy. They just are. And so we implemented the ability for you, I'm not going to say cheat, but the ability for you to catch up by paying money. Because those people that start on day one will have to can spend some money. But I still didn't think that there was enough. So what we're doing is in our shop you can buy gold coins. But we think of you when you buy gold coins as an investor. And if you spend if you spend money on this experiment, if you spend £2.50, we'll call you a friend of 22 Cans. You'll go onto this special website. You'll be commemorated and thanked. You'll be kept up to date. If you spend a little bit more, then when we open our closed beta for our main game, which we're working on at the moment, you will be invited into that main game. If you spend even a little bit more, you will become a character in our main game. In other words, a little bit like a Kickstarter, but it's a way of actually saying, look, you're giving us money, we're going to use that money to build this amazing game, and you're going to get gold coins. So I agree with you, is that a lot of a lot of the way free-to-play is being monetized is insanely greedy. I'm playing this game at the moment because my sister's playing it. It's called Airport City. Has anyone played Airport City? Oh my God, it is so greedy for my money. Every time I virtually have to launch, you've got to build an airport. Every time you virtually launch a plane, it's asking me for money. And that to me makes me feel awful about the game. I just feel that I'm playing a game and these people are trying to steal my money. I don't think free-to-play should feel like that. Free-to-play, for me, should, if you're a gamer, you should feel like you're investing. And that's why we've done what we've done.
I sort of agree with what you're saying, but I think as you get nearer to the middle of the cube, people would be more inclined to actually start paying real money to have that better chance of getting to the middle.
Well, that's a possibility, but remember, at any time, at any moment, we can rebalance it, we can make it more fair. And there are plenty of these layers to go through to work this out. That's what we're doing. I'm not saying that I have the answers on day one. I've got the questions. That's a very valid question. I'm making it fair. Fairness to me means if someone's invested their time, if someone's invested their effort, that should be rewarded. Should be rewarded in all games. And that's the important part of it. We can play around with those. Next question.
Okay, the next question is, I think down here. Oh no, sorry, it's over here on the left at the back.
Hi. Will multiplayer be the main thrust of all your experiments, and will that be like the final outcome in your final experiment? Multiplayer being the main thrust.
Yeah, I've always loved every game I've ever done, from the very first game, Populous, to the Fable series, has had multiplayer. And we've been playing around with multiplayer and cooperation. Our next experiment, we're going to experiment within the cube. Should we swap two people out? Does anyone else want to go? So do you mind, should we just swap you guys out and we'll bring someone else to write rude messages about me on the cube.
Let's have a from the back.
So if you just...
Bex, do you want to nominate a couple of people at the back and send them forward?
So every game has been multiplayer in some sense. I just find it fascinating. I find it fascinating. Can we make a multiplayer experience which changes the entire game? How does cooperation work with collaboration, work with the combative nature of human beings? Human beings are very different, and celebrating that difference. So we are, after we experimented with the cube, we're thinking of doing our next experiment is going to be something called cooperation. If you think of curiosity as being a huge, massive pass the parcel, then you can think of cooperation being a huge, massive tug of war. And we're playing around with that at the moment. So I love multiplayer. Absolutely, the experience that we're going to be doing is going to involve multiplayer. I love the fact that this connects millions of people together. And I think there's a lot of uniqueness in that. Next question.
Okay, next question is down here in the center. The chap with the mic. Yep, there you go.
Hi Peter, thanks a lot for doing this. Yeah, I just had one question about when you first pitched this idea to the team about experimentation and finding a great game and then eventually curiosity. What was the reaction, and did it all go well?
Good question, because that's a big problem for designers, is trying, we can think of these crazy ideas, but unless we get our team behind us, then, it's not worth anything. So when I first thought of the idea, there were just three of us in the office. There was me, Tim, and Dimitri. And, there was me, a rusty old programmer, I was never a brilliant programmer. That's why my games were like they were, because I've always programmed around my abilities to not program. And there was Tim, who was a technical director at Lionhead, and there was Dimitri, who was who really only come into the industry about a year or so before. And their reaction, I said, "Whoa, it's just a cube, for Christ's sake. It can't take long to do, for goodness sake. Just a big back cube in a room. And they seem to be fine with it. I think we thought it would take a lot less time than the 20 weeks it's taken. Very good. Because, yes, that's, for God's sake, demo number 2, go and clean that bit off. Remember, that's Apple submission saying this. But as I started to talk about, with the need for us to experiment, the need for us to play around with this technology that's in the world at the moment, the need for us to see what it's like if you have different motivations that you can balance. So I think the team believed you. But it's a really big problem. I mean, for a good example, the dog in Fable 2 was very, very hard to get through to the team because, understandably, the team wanted bigger swords. And I said bigger swords and a dog. There you go. Next question.
Okay, it's over here on the left.
Hi there, Peter.
Hello.
You've done so much for the game industry over a relative short space of time. I literally have to know what inspired you and set you down this course.
What inspired me? I mean, God, can you imagine what this job is like? I mean, I have the trust of people. People are willing to put their lives in my hands with the ideas that I have. I can literally, on this stage, I could say, let's do a game about hopscotching round the moon. I could then go back to my team and say, hey, let's do a game about hopscotching around the moon. How could that not inspire you? The idea that people look at you and say, we trust you enough with an idea is the most amazing, incredible feeling. Anyone in this room want to be a designer, by the way? Go and do it. Stick at it. It took me 10 years of hard graft before I got my first game out, called Populous. It took me 10 years of scribbling insane ideas, but at last, I managed to get a game out, and once you do, it's a fantastic, incredible, amazing job. Where you can look at this world, the world that exists out there now, and you can say, what bit of it shall I make a game? That is a huge amount of inspiration. I love watching films or reading books or listening to music and then getting a feeling inside of me, the feeling of success or the feeling of accomplishment, and that's a lot of inspiration for the ideas I have. But please, if you want to be a designer, keep at it, stick at it. Anyone in this room wants to be a designer, send me an email. I will respond eventually. And, I'll help any way I can.
Okay, next question's over here on the right. And then we have one in the back in the centre.
Hi, yeah, you talked about new interfaces
and
some of the cool things that are happening. But I just wondered kind of what you thought might happen to some of the old whether you see there's still a future for keyboard and mouse type gaming on PC. And equally, I get a bit tired having to play Rock Band with my brother who can't use his legs, having to play guitar and the foot pedal at the same time. So it's kind of awkward. So whether there's accessibility, reasons for using different controllers, and how you see that might fit in with making games for the general population.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question of accessibility is there. It's this simple, I think. Is that any experience that we make, and I've just made so many mistakes trying to do this, any experience that we make should be unbelievably understandable straight away. Like this tapping that's happening now, that's understandable, but have incredible amount of depth to it. And that's the perfect thing, is if you experiment with the way that you're tapping, sorry, can I borrow this? So what no one's done, all of these demos, they've not done the sensible thing, is remember, this is what I mean by accessibility. This, anyone can do. Tap with single finger. But if you get the rhythm right, and you tap with multiple fingers, you get that rhythm right, that gets a lot faster, a lot quicker, you can get a lot more accurate. You and I, we can tap together. So if you tap at the same time, we can tap together. And that's what I mean by depth, is that depth you should discover. Accessibility means anyone can do it. So the game that we're working on now, I want to be absolutely, unbelievably accessible, but incredibly deep. And that's what I feel about accessibility. I want everybody to be able to interact with the game that I make, but but I want us gamers to be the best at it. Does that answer your question? Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, she asked, would you consider a different
I
type
understand.
of
Sorry,
interface
I
more
didn't.
accessible?
I absolutely, totally agree with that. I think, I mean, if we look at something like Kinect, I actually I still really like the device. It's got its flaws with it, but being able to interact with the game with Kinect and be able to interact with the controller somewhere else, I think there's a lot of inspiration there. Same with this, is I don't see why you should just tap with your fingers. Maybe you can use a mouse, if you want to use your controller, it's just different ways of getting into that world. It's hard to design for those different devices. Yeah. Well, you see, that's what always frustrated me about Kinect, is because to me, it should work perfectly with people in wheelchairs. And if you should try Fable. Have you tried the Fable: The Journey? It's such a frustration because I wanted them to just be able to T-pose you on a seated position, because the trouble is that you try to look for, this standard human skeleton, which there isn't one, and if you go down and talk to them, I bet they could tweak a setting and it could work. It's just Kinect in general. It's worth just trying it out, because Journey was the only game I know for Kinect that was designed to be seated. And we did a lot of testing with people sitting in a variety of ways, and it should be fine with you. It should be fine with you. If it's not, send me an email and I'll see what I can do.
Okay,
next
we
question?
have time for two more. There's one at the back in the middle, and then there's one down here on the left. So back in the middle.
Mr. Molyneux, please correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the name of your studio, 22 Cans, represent 22 different experiments which are going to feed into your big game?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But let's not be confused about this. Within the cube itself, there could be 5 or 6 experiments. On layer 7, I can suddenly say every time you tap, it adds a cube. See what happens. I can make it so that the red side, it's red side versus blue side. So don't think that they're all going to be 22 different apps. They're going to be experiments within other experiments. Our next experiment that we're thinking of doing is the experiment called Cooperation. There may be 5 experiments in there. We may do another experiment. We may release the game. In fact, I'm a great fan of releasing the game before it's finished. And that could was there a laugh then? You're laughing about the older copies, don't blame me. So those 22 experiments, yes, there will be 22 experiments. It may take us a little while to span those out. And we need to experiment that number of times with these different things.
Okay, thank you. That actually does feed into my question.
Right.
For all the different experiments, do you actually know what you're looking for and what we are to expect?
Yes, I mean, we have got we're using the services of a psychologist for some of these, because some of them are psychological experiments, some of them are gameplay experiments, some of them are technical experiments. I mean, the experiment with the cube is a way to forget about all the psychological stuff. It's a way of thinking, can we support a delightful way of millions of people joining together in one experience? That's one core part of the experiment on different devices. So each one of those experiments that we're panning out, we predict they'll be testing technology, they'll be testing game mechanics, they'll be testing things like monetization, they'll be testing what it's like to tweak and balance in real time. So we've thought about all that stuff. Whether there's 22, as you can tell, I quite like the number 22. Someone's going to work out why soon, but and that's part of the motivation to say 22. But it may be that there's 15 or maybe there's 30. I do think at the moment, though, when we design games, they're going to be so different for such a different audience, using so many different techniques, we need to play around and experiment with those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and for our last question, there's a person down here on the left. Here you go. Yep.
Hi, Peter.
Could you jump up just so people can see
Where?
you? Thanks.
Hi,
Hi, Peter.
Oh, hi.
As a psychologist, I'm really interested, as curiosity as a psychological experiment and then leading on to other games.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in, what kind of roles are there for psychologists within the video game industry today? Because it's not a very straightforward path.
I think there is an enormous, I think every team or every game should be using some of the qualities of a psychologist. Now that can be very, very targeted. It can be targeted onto literally on story arcs, on when to layer in different experiences to the player, or it can be on a much deeper psychological basis about motivation, about that curve of interest. I mean, these guys are probably, their fingers are getting tired now and their brains are just starting to maybe go into that alpha state, which you want to get to with an experience like that. So that's a much more deep, interesting discussion which you'd have with the design team. But I know Valve have psychologists on staff. You know, I know Microsoft has some psychologists on staff, so I think more and more psychologists are coming in. If you're interested to come down to 22 Cans and just see what we're working on, you know, be happy to hear from you, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Cool. I'm afraid that's about all we've got time for, so thank you very much for coming, and thank you again to Peter Molyneux.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great.